Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to night 7 of Diddy or Didn't He here on the RadioMisfits.com podcast network. I am Pugs Moran. We sit here every night and we try to bring you up to speed on everything that's happened in that federal courthouse there in New York City. Day 7 of the Diddy trial. How can you follow us here? Well, like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform it is that you are watching right now. But if you're into the whole podcast thing, you can go to radiomisfits.com. Or if you need the video, we also have some video. You can watch the video version of this on Radio Misfits on both Facebook or YouTube. So there you go. Those are all the different ways that you can watch it. A couple of different ways we've been doing these shows now, excuse me. Sometimes we do panel shows where I'm joined by James Parker from WBAP and Headcrack from Dish Nation. Other nights, we just do recap shows where there's a lot that happened there in the courthouse, and we want to make sure that we cover all of it so that when we have these discussion shows with the rest of the guys, we can sort of reach back into previous days and we don't have to just stay focused on the events of that day. All right, so let's get started with day 7. As I say, I am Pugs Moran, and by the way, you can join me every day for my version of talk radio. I do what I call talk radio for normal people every day around about 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on RadioMisfits.com. Once again, you can find that on YouTube, RadioMisfits.com, Facebook, RadioMisfits.com, or just regular old RadioMisfits.com. That's the rant with me, Pugs Moran, every day, Monday through Friday, talk radio for normal people. And what I mean by that is I do a version of talk radio that isn't dependent on voting a certain way. We do politics on occasion, but I don't care how you voted. You shouldn't care how I voted. And I promise you, you have no idea how I voted. That's the way talk radio should be. Normal people just talking about stuff without that crazy lens of politics getting in the way. We don't have that problem here with Diddy or Didn't He as we start day 7. A couple of things I want to tell you about that happened in the courtroom today before everything got started. First and foremost, excuse me, I'm battling a bit of a cold here. For the second day in a row, court was delayed because of late jurors. I guess I wasn't completely up to speed on how the jurors are being housed. And that is because it seems like the jurors are being housed at their own place. This is not a situation, it seems, where they're being sequestered, because now we've got 2 days in a row where court was late because of problems with mass transit in New York City. Jurors were literally late coming to court. So that was interesting to me because I just assumed, as in all of these high-profile court cases, that these jurors are sequestered, but I guess they're not. It says here, 4 jurors were not in the courthouse. This likely is due to train problems. This is the official word from the courtroom deputy. It is the second day in a row that proceedings have been delayed. Monday's trial was delayed when a juror was also running late. The courtroom is also very cold. Oh, Diddy, you see Diddy there? He's shivering in his little white collared shirt and baby blue sweater. He's cold. It's so cold in there that the judge, actually, before they broke for lunch, he apologized to everybody. He said, look, it's cold. We're all cold. I'm freezing too. We're going to try and get this fixed. Apparently, the air conditioning is working too well there in the Manhattan courtroom of the Diddy trial. A couple other things were announced at the end of today's proceedings. The prosecution gave us some ideas as to who we should be expecting to see on the witness stand in the coming days. It was announced. Now, we speculated about this, didn't think it was going to happen because his name hadn't exactly been mentioned as someone who was going to be called as a witness. But rapper Kid Cudi has been announced that he will be speaking this week, possibly tomorrow, Wednesday, most likely on Thursday. The rapper, whose real name is Scott Muscudi, get it? Kid Cudi, Scott Muscudi. He could begin testifying Wednesday, but more likely he'll end up on the witness stand Thursday. I think I just said that. Muscudi dated Cassie on and off again during the time that she was also with Diddy, which is, also a problem for me, and it should be seen as a problem for the prosecution. If they are going to these great lengths to sort of portray Cassie as a trapped woman who had no choices, who was, a part of a sex trafficking operation, and that she, Diddy was domineering and abusive. I mean, if that is the narrative that they're trying to get out there, again with the Kid Cudi stuff, why do you keep showing us that she was running around on Diddy? I mean, she obviously wasn't a prisoner in the way that we conventionally think of prisoners. If she was also able to be running around and having a relationship with Kid Cudi, which apparently she did. Excuse me. Let's see here. A forensic psychologist, Dawn Hughes, is also expected to testify over the next couple of days. And some dude named George Kaplan. Don't know who George Kaplan is, but he is also expected to testify in the coming days. All right, let's get into what happened in the courtroom today. It was a carryover from yesterday. We saw the last of David James. David James was a guy I told you about. Hold on, let me see if I can find something for you here. I want to show you this guy because I think if you're watching on either Radio Misfits on YouTube or Radio Misfits on Facebook, you can see this. But here, I want to show you this guy. Oh my goodness. May 16th. Hold on. Let me try. Just bear with me for a second here. David James, who is the former... No, that's not what I want. Okay, I think this is it. Yeah. All right. So I want to show you this guy, David James. David James was on the stand yesterday, and he opened up today. And the reason I want to show him to you is because he was Diddy's personal assistant. I can't find him. Why can't we find this guy? There he is. Okay. Hold on. Yeah, there he is. All right. So I'm going to tell you about this guy and some of the things that he testified to. And I think it's important that you see what he looks like. So if you are, again, watching on either the Radio Misfits page on YouTube or on Facebook, you can see this. If not, I apologize. But, look, I'll try and describe him as best I can. So this here, where did he go? He was just there, right? He was just there. And then as soon as the page shared, it all went away. There he is. Okay, see there? This is Diddy's personal assistant, David James. Now, I heard the name David James. I imagine some twink-looking guy, Why does it keep doing that? Keeps doing that. I imagine some twink-looking guy. No, this guy looks like he's the general manager of some Northeastern League hockey team. This does not look like a guy that would be working for Diddy. This looks like a guy who teaches your 16-year-old how to drive. He's a driver's ed teacher looking guy. Anyway, David James, he took the stand for the second day in a row. He gave more detail about what it was like being Diddy on a day-to-day basis. Any interest in knowing what pills Diddy takes every day? David James had the whole list. Inside the toiletry bag that Diddy required were 25 to 30 pill bottles. This according to David James. He testified to this today. He said some of the pill bottles were Advil and Tylenol. He had water pills to help him lose weight. He had Viagra in there. Sounds like he needs that. Doing a lot of sexing. He had Viagra. He had pills to help increase his sperm count. I don't know what that's about, but okay. He had ecstasy in his daily toiletry bag. He had Percocet in there as well, marijuana too. So weed, Percocet, ecstasy, pills for sperm count, Viagra, weight loss, or water pills for weight loss, I guess, and some Advil and Tylenol. Thank you for playing What's in Diddy's Bag. James said Diddy received his drug haul from a dealer named One Stop. One Stop. Might we get One Stop on the witness stand? I'd like to hear from One Stop. And when asked how frequently he saw Combs take drugs, James said, I'd say every day. Yeah, better living through pharmaceuticals. I mean, a lot of these celebrities, they spend every moment of every day in some sort of pharmaceutical haze, and it becomes their normal operating sort of mode. So, a little bit buzzed all the time is the way most celebrities live, I guess. James said the fallen music producer received his drugs from One Stop. He said he saw him take drugs every day. Also, James testified that at one point during his employ with Diddy, he was forced to take not one, but two lie detector tests. Apparently, James testified Diddy was very paranoid. He thought everybody was stealing from him, and apparently Diddy misplaced an expensive watch. And so he decided that his personal assistant, again, the guy who looks like a high school driver's ed teacher, Diddy decided that David James was the one responsible, and so he made him take a lie detector test. Both occasions where David James was asked to take a lie detector by Diddy, he passed. Very good. Why did he quit? David James was asked why he is referred to as the former personal assistant of Diddy Combs. And it was a pretty interesting story that he told. And it was a story that shed a little bit of light on a story that we heard briefly last week when Cassie was on the stand. Cassie told us a story about how one freak-off got interrupted because somebody barged in and told Diddy that Suge Knight was down the street at some restaurant. And Diddy had beef with Suge Knight. And Diddy stopped the freak-off in order to just gun up and go down there to, I guess it's Mel's Drive-In. Mel's Drive. So anyway, that's what Cassie told us about. But now we got David James on the stand. David James gives us a little bit more detail about that because that whole situation is why he's no longer Diddy's personal assistant. That was the bridge too far. Here's the story as David James told it today on the stand. He said, why did he quit? David James said he resigned after Diddy once brought him to confront rival Suge Knight. Here's quotes now from David James on the stand today. Says, I was really shook up by it. It was the first time being Mr. Combs' assistant where I realized that my life was in actual danger. James encountered Suge Knight earlier that evening while picking up food for Combs. Okay, so let's set the stage here. So we know what Combs is doing. We know why David James and his security guard, D-Rock, we know why David James and D-Rock are picking up food at Mel's Diner. They're picking up food because they got a bunch of freak-off contestants who are absolutely famished. So that's what's going on at the house. And if you remember from Cassie's testimony last night, this was a particularly big freak-off. This one was heading into its third or fourth night. They were taking a break. And that's when Diddy decides, I'm getting out of here. So earlier, while the freak off is going on, you've got David James, Diddy's personal assistant. He's down at Mel's Drive-In, a little burger joint there in Southern California, and he's picking up some nourishment for the fuck toys or whatever the hell is going on there at the house. While he's at Mel's Diner, he sees Suge Knight. Okay. All right. So D-Rock, who is a security guard for Puff Daddy, and David James, who is his personal assistant, picking up food at the restaurant, and they see Suge Knight. Okay. James encountered Suge Knight earlier that evening while picking up food with Combs' security guard D-Rock at Mel's Diner in Los Angeles. Here's a quote now. That motherfucking Suge Knight, James recalled D-Rock telling him. So they walk in. Now remember, one guy is called D-Rock, and the other guy looks like he taught your daughter how to drive. Okay, so for some reason, these two dudes are hanging out together. They don't look like they're, and D-Rock turns to James and says, here's a quote now, that motherfucking Suge Knight. Right, like that's Suge Knight. James recalls D-Rock telling him. D-Rock told Suge Knight, the head of rival music production company Death Row Records, whose real name is Marion Knight Jr., D-Rock told Suge Knight that he was Diddy's boy before Knight responded, what are you doing in my city? Shit, man, just out here getting money, D-Rock responded. Then 4 SUVs pulled into the parking lot and someone handed Knight a gun. This is all according to what James testified today. So remember, this is the story. We heard the first part last week with Cassie where she said a freak-off got interrupted because Diddy wanted to go fight Suge Knight. So now we're seeing they run. This is how it started. This is how they saw Suge Knight. So 4 SUVs pull up. Suge Knight's got a gun. D-Rock and James, they whoop, 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 whoop. They get the hell out of Mel's Diner. excuse me, and they head on up back to the freak off where they're in a break. They come busting through the door of the freak off, and D-Rock, not James, D-Rock, he's like, Diddy, guess what? Like getting them all excited. Suge Knight is down there, and Diddy's probably all jacked up on like blow and ecstasy and all that, and he's like, I'm indestructible. So he runs out, and he tells David James, remember, this is the story on how David James decided to quit. So they're running out, and Diddy's like, come on, David James, Mr. High School math teacher, take a gun. And he gave him a gun, and he told him to get in the car, and David James had to go on this little roustabout mission with the boys to try and find Suge Knight. What they were going to do, I don't know, they got guns. He's going to shoot it out in the parking lot of Mel's Diner. It says here, the 4 SUVs pulled into the parking lot. Someone handed Knight a gun. D-Rock and James went back to Combs's place. And then upon telling Diddy, they all got in his Escalade, armed with 3 guns, and headed back to the diner, driving in eerie silence, James said. Mr. Combs had 3 handguns on his lap, James testified. But we know that when they got back there, Suge Knight was gone. So it probably took too long. All right, so that was it for James. David James, the former assistant, what he did was he sort of corroborated some of the stories of excess, violence, drugs, debauchery, and he talked about, the violent nature of Diddy. So that's what he did. He left. Next up today, we got to hear from, who was it? It was Cassie's mom, right? Cassie's mom takes the stand, Regina Ventura, who was brought up. Now, Regina Ventura, Cassie's mom, you would think that maybe she would play a larger role in the proceedings here, but no. She was only on the stand for 15 minutes. She essentially corroborated what Cassie had testified to as far as the brutal nature, the violent nature of her relationship with Diddy. She corroborated that, and she... here was something interesting. So Sean Diddy Combs once demanded that Cassie pay him $20,000. 20 grand. He wanted 20 grand, and he threatened to release freak off videos. So this was, I think, around the time of the Kid Cudi situation that we're going to get a little more clarity of when Cudi testifies later this week. But Cassie had made Diddy irate, I believe, because she was running around with Kid Cudi, and Diddy said, well, I'm going to release these freak off videos. And Cassie was told this, and Cassie was told that if she paid $20,000 to Diddy, that he wouldn't release the freak off videos. Now, Cassie went to her mom and said, Mom, I don't know what to do. 20 grand. I don't have 20 grand. So Cassie's mom took a mortgage out on her house and then cut a check to Bad Boy Records for 20 grand. Cassie's mom actually paid 20 grand. Now, a couple of weeks later, when Cassie and Diddy probably reconciled, as these relationships between morons often do, that money was refunded. So Cassie's mom got the money back, but there you have it. And the reason for her to testify to that was so that she can sort of prove that there was blackmail, that Diddy was threatening to release the freak off videos, that Diddy was threatening to, sexually blackmail Cassie and whatever career she thinks she's going to have now with Kid Cudi. All right, so Regina Ventura was on the stand for all of 15 minutes. She testified to all of that. Then it came time for Mark Agnifino, the lead defense for Diddy's side of things, to cross-examine her. And Mark said, nope, I'm going to pass. Took a big pass. No cross-examination of Regina Ventura. I thought that was strange, but, who am I? Certainly not as smart as high-priced celebrity attorney Mark Agnifino. Can't even pronounce his name. All right, now let's get to the good stuff, because this is going to have a lot of me just reading actual testimony from court today. This was our next guy up. We've been waiting on him. We first heard tell of this man last week on Friday and went, ooh, is he going to take the stand? And guess what? Here we go. On Tuesday, coming to the stand, ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce you to 51 years old, 51 years young, the Punisher. That's right. Male sexual stallion, sex worker, escort, male stripper, and VH1 reality show star, Sheree the Punisher Hayes. All right, so this dude gets up. This is another one of these dudes that was hired by Diddy to sex up Cassie for the freak-offs. He would hire a male escort. Male escort would come in and rail his girlfriend, and Diddy would masturbate, and apparently that was the thing. We get more. Trust me, there's way more details than that, but that's the overview. That's the 30,000-foot view of this. And in what was, kind of a sweet moment on the stand today, Sheree the Punisher Hayes kind of conveyed some emotional ennui at the realization that he wasn't the only male escort. He said that he had thought the whole time that he was engaged in these sexploits with Diddy and Cassie. He thought he was the only one. He had no idea about that dude from last week that was like, yeah, I did it. He had no idea about Jonathan Odie, who was another male escort that we learned about last week. He's the guy doing time in prison for, I don't know, attacking a Trump golf course or something. He did something stupid. But yeah, it was a kind of a sweet moment where Sheree the Punisher was like, I really thought I was the only one, but okay, I guess they don't love me. I guess what we had wasn't special. The Punisher is on the witness stand. Hayes, 51. He testified that he got the nickname the Punisher while in his teens. Says he got it's a basketball nickname. It's not a sex nickname. I know it sounds perfect for like a big giant black stallion, just professional sex doer. He said the Punisher. I mean, it's perfect. You don't really think of it as a basketball name, but okay, whatever. That's what he says. He says it's a basketball name. Exotic dancer Sheree the Punisher Hayes says the first time that he was hired to enact a sexy scene for Cassie Ventura and Sean Diddy Combs, he didn't recognize the music mogul because remember, this was back. Remember that in the beginning they were wearing masks. Yeah. Well, apparently Diddy was wearing a burqa. Diddy was naked from the neck down. And he was masturbating, this according to the Punisher. But he didn't know it was Diddy because Diddy was wearing like a Muslim burqa hood. Exotic dancer Sheree the Punisher Hayes says the first time that he was hired, I didn't recognize Diddy because he was naked but wearing a Muslim face hood. Hayes, 51, says that he was hired in the fall of 2012 by someone who called themselves Janet and was told to come to Trump Tower. Trump, there we go. It's all these sketchy affiliations, man. He was told to come to Trump Tower. What do we have here? He was told to come to Trump Tower. He assumed that he would be doing a striptease for a group of women, but when he arrived, only Ventura greeted him at the door. Okay, so first of all, think about that. All right. First, it doesn't matter to this guy. This guy's a good-looking guy. He can probably get any woman he wants. But it's a job, It's like, oh, God, I got to go get naked for a bunch of gross, rich, old women. Right? That's what he's thinking. He's thinking, this is just going to be like some stuff. And these women, they're going to touch me. Whatever. I can do that. So that's what he's thinking. And then he shows up in the door to this, hotel suite opens, and it's just Cassie. Yeah. He's got to be like, I love my job. She's a beautiful woman, is my point. Hayes says that he arrived and only Ventura greeted him at the door and explained that they were going to be creating a, quote, sexy scene with baby oil and that he shouldn't look at her husband when he came out to watch. Husband. Look at Cassie. Cassie projecting a little bit, a little hope trafficking. Yeah, he's my husband. We're playing husband. That's interesting. That's telling. I'd jump on that if I was the defense. Why were you projecting that you were husband? Did you want something? I don't. Sorry. It says here, but when he arrived, he only found Ventura greeting him at the door. And it was explained that they were going to be creating a sexy scene with baby oil and that he shouldn't look at her husband when he came out to watch. Boy, Diddy really is into the baby oil thing. It's not just, it really is. Every turn here, they're talking about baby oil. Good Lord. Let's see here. The Punisher says that Cassie handed me a stack of money. Says that it was $800. Hayes and Ventura started putting baby oil all over themselves when a naked man came into the dimly lit room. Here's a quote now from the Punisher. Couldn't see his face. He had what the Muslim women wear, where their face is completely covered and you could only see his eyes. Hayes didn't specify further about what the head garb was. The Punisher then said the man was carrying a bottle of Astroglide, personal lubricant, and he masturbated before leaving the room. Upon finishing, Ventura also left the room after handing Hayes another $1,200. Yeah, we know what was going on there. Huh? So Diddy finishes, right? This is what Diddy finishes. The other guy finishes. Remember what we learned? I'm sorry, but these are the grotesque details that we are learning in this trial. So the man would ejaculate on Cassie, and then Diddy would leave the room, and then Cassie would leave the room, and she testified that she would then go into the bathroom and smear the jizz all over Diddy. Ew. So that's what's happening here. That's what's happening. See, we're putting all of these things together. Little puzzle pieces of testimony from last week that fit together with this piece of testimony. It says, Hayes said the man carrying a bottle of Astroglide personal lubricant masturbated and then left the room upon finishing. Ventura also left the room after handing Hayes another $1,200, he testifies. And again, we know what they left the room to go do. Something gross. Hayes said he was hired by the pair another 8 to 12 times, and he eventually discovered that the man was Combs when he went to meet them at the Essex Hotel in New York, and there was a sign welcoming Mr. Sean Combs. All right, so that's how I knew it was them. The exotic dancer was hired between 8 and 12 times. We said that for twisted sex sessions. Now, this is interesting. I want to double down on this because, again, we make a lot of assumptions about what's happening here. I talked to James and Crack yesterday about how, we keep hearing in the lead up to this trial that, Diddy was gay and there's all these gay things and he's having sex with gay prostitutes. We have now heard from two male prostitutes who have taken the stand in this case, and there has been no suggestion that Diddy did anything physical with any other man. So, also, we just make the assumption that they're having intercourse. I don't know how they're defining sex. Didn't you assume they were having intercourse? Cassie testified last week about all of these encounters with men while she had UTDs or urinary tract infection, where she had these, and it was terrible having sex that way. So we're all assuming that there is intercourse, penis and vagina going on. But then we hear this. This comes to us from the Punisher. He said that he was hired between 8 and 12 times. And on his last encounter with the celebrity duo. So if he was hired 8 to 10 times, this was the last encounter. He testified that on the last encounter with the duo, okay? On his last encounter with the celebrity duo, the Punisher said, Combs at one point threw condoms on the couch and told him in an assertive and aggressive tone that he was, quote, ready to see him have sex with Ventura. Then did you assume, like me, that they were having sex the whole time? I mean, we heard about the first time he shows up at the Trump Tower. He thought he was going to be doing a strip tease for a bunch of old women. Turns out it's Cassie, and she says we're going to be recreating a sex scene with baby oil. So my assumption there is that they had intercourse. But no, they didn't. They just rubbed. I don't know. This puzzle. We're only in the second week here. This is expected to be 6 to 8 weeks. So maybe this puzzle will come together more. The exotic dancer was hired between 8 and 12 times for twisted sex sessions. On his last encounter with the celebrity duo, Hayes said Combs at one point threw condoms on the couch and told him in an assertive and aggressive tone that he was, quote, ready to see him have sex with Ventura. Hayes testified he understood that he was there to, quote, create a scene. And Combs was sort of like a movie director during these sex marathons, while he and Ventura were like actors in the scenarios. He also said it could be stressful having Combs direct things, and that on the last encounter, he wasn't able to perform sexually for that reason. My God, when you're running around, when you're strutting around and looking like that and fronting a name like the Punisher, you better be able to fucking steal up, right? Guy had you paying the Punisher $2,000. You can't get it going. Incidentally, too, this was another thing that was dropped while the Punisher was on the stand today. He wrote a book. The Punisher apparently wrote a book. Here's what we know about that. Sheree, he wrote a book about erectile dysfunction. Yeah, he's on the stand testifying against it. Sheree the Punisher Hayes testified that he recently published In Search of Freezer Meat. Yeah, that's the name. That's the name of the... sounds like a good name for a punk band. Freezer Meat. In Search of Freezer Meat is the new book that the Punisher wrote. It's a men's self-help book about erectile dysfunction by way of penis implant. So he's advocating. He's an advocate for penis implants. All right, whatever. There you go. He said that he had all kinds of problems. And in this book, In Search of Freezer Meat, he writes about Cassie and Diddy, although he changes their names. Hayes told prosecutors that sexual encounters between he, Combs, and Ventura are editorialized in the book in 6.5 pages, where he called them a married, wealthy couple. He says that he sensationalized describing Ventura. All right, that was it for the Punisher. The Punisher was up and the Punisher was down. We hear we're going to get a couple of more of these escorts taking the stand. I don't know that any will be as colorful as the Punisher, but we can certainly hold our hopes high. Finally today, taking the stand, we had another federal agent by the name of Gerard Gannon. Gerard Gannon closed out the day. He testified about raiding Diddy's home in Miami. He was one of the agents on the scene there. He didn't get out much. He didn't say much. They ended for the day. He's going to be back on the stand tomorrow as they begin day 8. Special Agent Gerard Gannon. Also tomorrow, they've floated that we might get Kid Cudi tomorrow, which would be pretty cool. That's another one, because Kid Cudi, remember, Kid Cudi now was like running around with Cassie. Cassie was, in a relationship with Diddy, not in a relationship with Diddy. She's running around with Cudi. Diddy told Cassie that he was going to blow up Cudi's car. Cudi's car blew up. Anyway, Cudi, no love lost. Cudi's going to get up there on the stand and he's going to tell some things. So that's something to look forward to. Again, that's either going to happen tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon. They might get to Kid Cudi, or that'll be Thursday. But it's been promised that it is coming this week. All right, folks, one more time, I'd like to implore you, please like, follow, subscribe, do all of that stuff. You can find me, Pugs Moran. You can find that. Just Google Pugs Moran. You'll find me on Twitter. You'll find me on Facebook. You'll find all of that stuff. But also, don't forget, I do a talk show every day, Monday through Friday, for the last 3 years. It's talk radio for normal people. It's talk radio the way talk radio ought to be, not through a political lens, but just normal, decent people getting pissed about the same stuff, right? We're all angry about shit. We all want to rant and rave. It doesn't all have to be about, politics. It doesn't all have to be about he's red or he's blue. Talk radio for normal people. The Rant with me, Pugs Moran, every day, Monday through Friday. You can find us here at Radio Misfits, or you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find all of that stuff, either Pugs Moran or Radio Misfits. We'll be there for both. All right, thanks, folks, and join us again tomorrow for day 8 in the Sean Diddy Combs versus the world. It's Diddy or Didn't He with me, Pugs Moran, every night here on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.